There was Steve Martin, the actor Steve Martin,
Yeah.
the comedian. Steve said to me, he came up when the Trading Places came out, this he said, I want to do my review of Trading Places. Who knew that Jamie Lee Curtis had
Peter, Mr. Landis, I do actually have a question. My question is, I thought your appearances in American Grindhouse and Machete Maidens Unleashed were a lot of fun.
Machete Maidens Unleashed was weird because I said to the guy, he'd made a wonderful movie about Australian exploitation.
Yeah.
And he called me and said, I want you to be in this. I said, I never made a movie in the Philippines, I'm not. And there was a movie, the best documentary ever made about horror films was made by a guy named Adam Simon, oh gosh, 10 years ago, called American Nightmare. It's a superb film. Everyone rips that off, actually.
Yeah.
And he was doing about a group of films from the late 60s, early 70s. And American Werewolf was one of those films. And so he did interview me and all that stuff. And then when he put it together, he saw that I wrote it in 1969, but because I made it in 81, he didn't put it in. And he told me, your film's not in the movie. And I was like, oh. Then I see the documentary, and I'm all over the fucking thing. And he like used me like to hold it together. I'm like you schmuck, what the? So since then, I don't think I'm going to be a talking head. I don't want to do it because in American Grindhouse, Elijah Dean, I forgot the guy's name, the guy who made it. It's a good documentary, by the way, American Grindhouse. But he used me once again to hang the movie on, and I felt like, you should pay me for this. And so when I was shooting Burke and Hare, and when the Australian guy got in touch with me, and I said, I've never been to the Philippines, talked to Joe Dante, you know, he cut all those trailers, I gave John Davison, I gave him a bunch of names, but he said, no, I'm coming to London to interview you, but I have not, you know, and he said, well, you've seen them? I said, of course. So he asked me, the one thing he used a lot was I pointed out to him that all these revolutionary films were being made in a complete fascist dictatorship. And he went like, gee, that's a good idea. And then that became the theme of the fucking show. But I feel kind of weird about being in that one. Because I'm not part of that. Whereas I am part of American Grindhouse because I made schlock. You know?
You actually did make schlock. But,
I still do.
Yeah. But that was my question. What's it like being sort of regarded as a film historian to an extent nowadays?
Well, I do. You know what? Joe Dante probably knows more than me, but I'm a big film buff. And I was telling someone earlier, I was born in 1950. So growing up in Los Angeles, especially when I decided to be a filmmaker, a director when I was 8, I sought out filmmakers, and you got to realize, film is brand new. I mean, what is it, 112 years old? It's brand new as opposed to every other art form. And so I was able to meet the pioneers, the guys who invented the language. I sought out, I met everybody. People like Alan Dwan, you know, like Hal Roach, and just everybody, you know, from George Cukor, George Stevens, Howard Hawks, Frank Capra, everybody. John Ford. I'm sitting next to him at this AFI event. This is a true story. And he's a miserable son of a bitch. He's an old guy. And I was told, whatever you do, don't let him drink. So he keeps pouring wine, and I keep, you know, doing this like. And then finally he turns to me and he goes, do you know Peter Bogdanovich? Now you have to remember, I didn't know Peter at that time. Peter Bogdanovich wrote the best book on John Ford, and made a brilliant documentary about John Ford and really brought him up and got him the AFI. I mean, Peter really, okay. I said, no, I met Peter Bogdanovich, and he goes, is he a fag? And I remember thinking, sometimes you shouldn't meet your heroes. Alfred Hitchcock had an office, a building, a bungalow at Universal, as I did. And so we used to have lunch. He liked Blues Brothers, right? We used to have lunch every second Thursday for 3 years. And that was I felt very privileged.
Remember any specific comments Hitchcock made about the Blues Brothers?
No, Hitch was very, very funny, man. Yeah. Also, incredibly vulgar. And he could always get me to go like, because I'm sitting there like I'm, you know, like at the Lincoln Memorial, I'm sitting there, and there's this God to me, and he would say the filthiest things, and really, he could always shock me. Hitchcock quote. I mean, I can tell it now because who cares? But this movie came out by Brian De Palma called Dressed to Kill. Now Hitch had a screening room in his office with 6 seats. Every day, 5 days a week, 10:30, he saw a brand new movie. He was very current. You know. And he loved Clockwork Orange. He just thought that was brilliant. Anyway, so Dressed to Kill comes out. And Hitch didn't like it, but what he was furious about was all the critics said Hitchcockian. And if you remember the ads, it said Hitchcockian. And Hitch was furious. He said, what the fuck, Hitchcockian? He didn't like it. He was offended. And he just went on and on. And he's attacking Brian De Palma. And I don't know Brian De Palma. At times I've met him. He's kind of a jerk. But he's made a couple of movies I think are wonderful. Blowout is good. But see the movie that he stole from. Well, anyway, but the blow up and
Conversation, everything.
thank you, the conversation. Anyway, you know, movie De Palma's I like is Sisters. I like Sisters. Yeah, he made some really early stuff. Yeah, and his really early stuff like Green Time. Anyway, so I don't know De Palma. I mean, I don't know. But Hitch is going on and really being nasty about De Palma, you know, attacking him, about calling him a thief, you know, and stealing. And finally I said, Hitch, look, that's not fair. He's not stealing from you. It's an homage. And without a moment's hesitation, Hitch goes, you mean fromage? He was very funny.
How did you feel about Into the Night? Because that's my favorite film of all time.
You know, he never said
I haven't
about
seen it yet.
Into the Night?
Into the Night, I love it.
Yeah.
That was by, you know, it's funny when people say that to me now.
Cameos by every
You
director.
know, I want to say, where the fuck were you 12? That's why you weren't there. That picture was my first failure. I had made these movies, big hits, big hits, big hits. Movie came out completely tanked, and I was like, I did the same thing I always do. What happened? I was really taken aback. It's like, really, you can fail at this business? But so many people like that movie. David Bowie's wonderful in that movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else?
It's an honor to be here with you today.
Oh, please.
Of all the directors you met when you were an up-and-coming filmmaker, who gave you the best advice?
You know, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I remember when I made Animal. This is not the best advice, but it's an advice story. When I made Animal House, I cut it together, and my first cut, right now with credits, Animal House is like 114 minutes, which I think is too long. If the best comedies ever made are between 60 and 80 minutes, they were double features. If you look at Duck Soup, or It's a Gift, W.C. Fields' best comedy ever made. Or like, there's an Italian movie, which in the States they called it Big Deal on Madonna Street. It was made by, who just, do you know how he died?
Suicide.
What? Do you know the story? It's an extraordinary story. Do you know how old he was? He was in his 90s, still working, never stopped making pictures. He was very ill, and he went to the doctor. Doctor put him in the hospital to do tests. He's on the 12th floor. This is in Rome. This is last year. And he's Mario Monticelli. And he said to Monticelli, he said, you have cancer. And Monticelli said, well, can you fix it? He said, no, you're going, I'm afraid it's fatal. And Monticelli said, so how long do I have to live? I said, I don't know, but it's going to be rapid decline. And Monticelli went, that's what you're telling me? He says, yes. He said, okay, jumped out the window. Wow. Imagine being that doctor. He made a big deal on Madonna Street. It's called Solid. Say it loud. With Marcello Mastroianni, Toto, Vittorio Gassman, a 19-year-old Claudia Cardinale that'll make you even more excited. But it's one of the funniest movies ever made. There's a scene it's been remade like 9 times, all bad. But there's this, you have to see it, it's a black, do you know who Toto was, Italian? Yeah. It's old skinny guy with a great face. And there's a scene in it, there are these low-life guys, the Gabons, just really low-life guys, and they're gonna rob this bank by digging through. So they're gonna do the crime, and they all get together. And Toto comes up, and he's wearing a zoot suit. And even though it's black and white, you know the zoot suit's like canary yellow. They all look at him like this, and he goes, Sportivo. Anyway, all the best movies are the best movies, period, are short. And you know, less is more, you've heard all that, that's all true. Short, cut it, you know. And so it freaked me out that it was so long, my movie. So George Roy Hill, who made his most successful movies, probably Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, but he made, who knows George Roy Hill movies? He made The World of Henry Orient.
Slaughterhouse 5.
Slaughterhouse 5, isn't that great? I love that movie. Slapshot. There you go, Slapshot,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. It's really interesting. It's well, I can see why. But Slapshot's a great film. Anyway, he told me, Paul Newman said, I love the Blues Brothers because now I can say fuck! Anyway, but the story, it's just a weird story I just realized. But I went up to George in the commissary and I said, Mr. Hill, yeah, I'm Tom Landis from Illinois, and I just made a movie, and I think it's too long. But I cut me out. I had a part out of a sequence. I cut me out. I cut Sonny Johnson, this other. I couldn't figure out what to cut. I really liked it. And my editor kept saying, it's fine, leave it, you know. I said, no, it's too long. So I go to George Roy Hill, and I asked him, would you look at the movie? And he said, I'd be delighted. He was a very elegant guy, older guy, Ivy League. So he shows up, room 2, the parking lot, Universal. You know, at like 4 in the afternoon, and he's sitting in the end of the row, in the first row, probably a 250-seat theater. And his secretary has a margarita, not margarita, it was martini. You know those things, a martini thing? And she was making martinis, and he sat there and watched the movie and drank. George Folsey, the editor, and I are in the back. He's watching work print. And when he's finished, he's completely drunk. And he comes up to me here, and he says, Mr. Landis, he says, and he takes my shoulder. He says, it's like a tree. You take a tree and you shake it. And you really shaking me. And he says, and everything that falls to the floor, just fucking leave it there. Like, thanks, Mr. Hill. It's actually good advice. Took me years to understand what he meant, but